Hello everybody, thanks for being here. My name is Juana Adcock and it gives me tremendous pleasure to introduce my friends to the stage. We are all part of a project called the UK-India Eco Project, which brings us together to work on some collaborations, some residencies, some workshops and interactions with students, as well as participating in 3 literary festivals. So we're all very lucky. And this project is in coordination with the organization Literature Across Frontiers, towards whom we're very grateful, and in partnership with DC Kirakamuri Foundation, as well as the Mathrubhumi International Festival of Letters. So we have, apart from us 4, there's 2 other poets who are part of this project, Zoe Scolding and Anita Tampi. And we've been doing collaborative writing, listening to the nature and the places that we've been in, and creating new work, incorporating sound, poetry, and thinking about eco-justice and the impact of human life on our ecosystems, as well as engaging with all the non-human beings that we share the planet with. And so first up, I'd really like to invite Iestyn Tyne to perform. He is a Welsh poet and he's working with the Welsh language, which he'll tell you a bit more about. But this is a language with a really rich history in poetry. And it's one of the languages that are spoken in the UK. So I'll pass over to you, Iestyn.
Thank you very much, and just like to reiterate what an honour it is to be here. So yeah, as Juana was mentioning, the Welsh language, it's a very old language. It's got a rich literary tradition, and yeah, I've been performing some early poetry from Welsh as well as my own work. So I was thinking I would start with this poem, which is probably one of the earliest conservation poems in Wales, but maybe in the UK and who knows, worldwide possibly as well. It comes from the 16th century and it refers to an area known as Glyn Cynon Vale, in the area of the town of Merthyr Tydfil. And in the 16th century, a huge area of woodland was cleared and burnt to create charcoal in order to melt iron. The iron industry was getting going at that time. And this poem is very indignant, and it's by someone who loved this forest, and it describes how they call upon a jury of birds and the owl to decide on the fate of these terrible criminals who have cut down their beloved trees. So I'm going to try and perform it, and yeah, I'll just set up for a moment.
Aberdar Llanwyna I gyd, Blwy Merthyr hyd Llanfabon. Mwyaf adfyd a wnaed erioed, pan doren coed Glyn Cynon. Torri llawer parlwr pyr, lle cyrchfa gwir a meibion. Yn oes dyddiau seren siw, mor arail yw Glyn Cynon. Llawer bedwen las I chlog yng nghrog y byddor Saeson, sydd dan danllwyth mawr o dan, gan wir yr heiar yn dian. Mynaf wneithir arnynt gwest o adar onest digon, Ar dy llian dan ei nod a fynnau fod yn hangon. O daw gofyn pwy awnau hyn o araith greulon. Dyn a fi gynt yn cadw oed dan fforest coed glyn cynnon. So that was Coed Glyn Cynnon, the 16th century poem. And talking about nature, there's a long tradition of writing about animals and the world of nature. And perhaps one of the most famous poets who wrote about nature was 13th century Welsh poet Dafydd ap Gwilym. He was born to a richer family than most of the poets, and so he kind of had more freedom to write about what he wanted. So at the time, many poets were mercenary, and they would have to write poems for their living, maybe praising, nobility, or singing for their supper. Whereas Dafydd ap Gwilym didn't have to do that. He wrote about love and wrote about nature. And some of his poems are some of the most beautiful that have survived in the Welsh language. And this one is Yr Wylan, the gull. And in it, Dafydd uses the gull as a messenger. He sends the gull, he asks the gull to send a message of love to a girl who is in the tower at Aberystwyth Castle, which is a coastal town in the west of Wales. And this is on the form of a cywydd, which is quite a strict and rigid form in Welsh, which has got a lot of patterns of consonants and chiming, and which we know as cynghanedd in Wales. So I'll perform a Wylan, which is this 13th century poem. Yr wylan deg ar lanw dioer, unlliw ag eiri neu wenlloer. Dilwch yw dy degwch di, darnfal hael, dyrnfal heli, ysgafn ar don, eigion wyd, esgydfalch edyn fysgotfwyd. Yngorau dwrthyr angor, law am i, lili mor, llythyr unwaith, lleth arianwyd, lleian ymrig llanw mor wyd. Cywir glod bun, caer glod bell, cyrch, ystym caer a chastell edrych a welich wylan. Eigyr o liw ar y gaer lan, dywaid fy ngeiriau dyn. Dewised fi, dosid fi'n, byddai hun, beiddiau hanerch bydd edrys wrth gwythus ferch. Bydd, dywaid na byddaf, fwynwas coeth fyw o'n is caf i charu rwyf, gwbl nwyf nawdd, och, wir erioed ni charawdd na merdyn wenithfyn iach. Nathal Iestyn neith lysach, sibrist yn giprist a'n gopr. Rhagorgryd rhug a weir broper, och, wylan, och ai weled, gryd y ddyn, lanaf o gred, o'n i chaf, fwyna fanerch, fyny henydd fydd y ferch. And I'll finish with one of my own poems. This is one that's been translated into Malayalam by Anita Tampi. The title in Malayalam is Odwil yn y diwedd, in the end. So I'll read in Welsh and then I'll do a translation in English to finish. Yn y diwedd, ar un gangen ir yn y fforest bydredig yn gollwng yr olaf o'i dail. Beth fyddwn yn wyneb y gwirionedd hwnnw? Gall galar a chywilydd fod yn enwau gwahanol ar yr un wylo. A hwyrach y marnadur munudau olaf, y bydd modd o'r diwedd i grymanu'r corff am ongla'r gwir, taflu dwy fraich am wddf ein terfynoldeb. Hynny a gofyn yn y nos anial ddi-wyneb, beth yw'r awydd hwn? sy'n fy nhynnu weithiau i siglo ar ddibyn, rhwygof ymrest a ragor a chlywed a rhyferthrwyn chwibanu yn ogof fach y galon. Gofyn beth os mae dysgu sut i farw ydy'r unig ffordd o barhau i fyw. In the end, as the one unwithered bough in the decaying forest drops the last of its leaves, what shall we be in the face of that truth? Grief and shame can be different names for the same weeping. It may be in the elegies of the final moment that we shall be able, at last, to scythe the body into the angles of truth, to throw our arms around the neck of our finiteness. That, and asking into the desolate and faceless night, what is this desire that draws me sometimes to sway at a precipice, to rip open my chest and hear the tempest whistle in the small cavern of the heart? Asking what if learning how to die is the only way we can go on living? Thank you very much. And it'll be a moment to set up, but I'd like to invite and welcome the wonderful Montenegro Fisher to do their thing.
Namaskaram.
Namaskaram.
It's really nice to see you all. We want to say a big thanks to the Mathrubhumi Festival and to Literature Across Frontiers, because of them we can be here, and it's a real pleasure to be here, especially with all of you, but also with that amazing tree there that is kind of looking at us. It's very beautiful. So this, it's coming. So we have been here for over a month. We were in Bagamon, in Calicut, in different places, and we've been listening to birds a lot. And we've been thinking, like, how can we communicate with them in some way? So we have been testing possibilities and examples. And sometimes they even reply. It's really nice. So here we go. Breath as moon, moon as wave, wave as motion, motion as breath, breath as moon, moon as wave, wave as motion, motion as breath, breath as moon, moon as wave, wave as motion, motion as breath, breath as moon, moon as wave, wave as motion, motion as breath, breath as moon, moon as wave, wave as motion, motion as breath, change, 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 motion, motion as breath, change, change is within the composition. This poem is called Formation, formation, r, a, t, I, o,
And these are birds that we recorded in Vagaman, in
So
the
there's some birds of
residency on the
Kerala.
Eco Project. Is consciousness, is crow, is raven, is magpie, in-flight entertainment,
conscious beings.
beings,
Shall we?
the shortest distance
To the inner,
to mind.
to what is in, out, in, out, in, out, in, outside.
As the crow flies, keep moving, keep moving.
Keep
Inform, action, disinfection,
packet permutations.
crunching exceptions,
Logos filtration.
binding impure,
To silver, to copper.
to extraction, multiplication,
Out formation in chaos station.
formulation, formulation,
Flow in, fly out, fast, fantastic.
distortion, dramatic option, deluded caution,
Conglomeration, baseful, human,
existence, bringing end to
party political options,
optimize energy,
clashing with the universe.
constructs colonizing
The mycelium mind.
the
The mycelium mind. The mycelium mind. The mycelium mind. The mycelium mind.
mycelium mind.
This poem, it comes from Calicut. When we arrived here, it was really beautiful to see so many birds by the beach in KLF. And this poem is called Milvus migrans. Milvus migrans. It's a species of bird that we encounter there.
To be kin with a convocation of black kites,
To feed, to fly, to raptor respire. In synchronicity.
at what speed does the heartbeat of a black kite empathy with other species, matching breathing rates,
Kinds of commonality, a vibration,
a perceptive affiliation. Is it trust? Trust? Trust?
is it in the air?
In the ear?
Is it in the eye?
In the brain?
Is it in the mouth?
In the singularity and multiplicity of organs,
Bodies,
biomes,
biomass,
through lenses and senses,
salted saliva.
is it a superpower A consciousness?
Is it a practice? An awareness?
A qualification?
Masters of intraspecies communication, awarded in Vagamon tropical forest.
Is it more possible in the Arctic?
In a salt lake under full moonlight.
If I learn it,
Can I teach it?
could it be an app?
Would it be easier with some kind of whistle,
At breakfast,
lunch,
tea time,
or dinner?
in sleep,
In water,
in stillness,
in the burning humid heat,
with sweat,
with a smile,
with white eyes,
with closed eyes.
Thank you very much, both of you, for these wonderful performances. It's really interesting to hear the Welsh and the birds kind of in dialogue with each other in this place. And we've really enjoyed listening to all the different birds that we're not familiar with and trying to think about ways that we would be in dialogue with them. Sorry, I'll switch to this mic now. Yeah. So I work as a translator as well as a poet, and in my work as a translator I'm always thinking about different voices and the level of formality or informality of these voices and how they can be in dialogue with each other. And so I thought I would read this poem, which is called The Serpent Dialogues. It's a very long poem. I'll just read the first short extract. And it's another way to imagine being in dialogue with nature, I guess. And I know that the snake is very important in Kerala, so this is in honor of you guys. When the woman realized the snake was scared of her too, she went back to the balcony where she'd at first mistaken him for a spool of brightly colored rope. She lay down on the ground and waited, watching as fear took hold of her body, whirlpools of sickness through her limbs, sweat like black ice, her breath sprinting ahead of her, and she unable to catch up. Footnote. Who were you? Why were you given my name, since the mountains rose up in revolt? Why was I given yours with a mouth tinged in fire? A long time passed before she was able to even unclench her jaw and allow sound to come out. When she finally did, she asked all manner of absurd questions. And the snake, to her surprise, responded. Snake, what do you think of monotheism, since everything is holy, I mean? Man, humans need to organize everything. Messages need to be packaged in a way that's intelligible to them. Otherwise, they'd be lost. That's why the Mass is didactic in structure, like a theatre play, is what you're saying. Yes, but the sacred element is also built through repetition. Repetition is much loved by men. Footnote. Look at this old postcard from Tibet. Mountains were taught to us as the picture of stillness, but the chaos that went into making that shape is still pushing up, up. Why do you come here to see me every day? It's nice on this rock. There are countless others to choose from. Oh, what about you? Why are you here every morning? Gives me a good vantage point. Footnote. The balcony, a liminal space, carved from the side of the mountain, both outside and in, like what separates night and day, a purely intuited border. I thought there were no thorns there, but then I saw the barbed fences had been sown into the earth like rows of corn. Exoskeleton soldiers on the wealth side, AK-47s at the ready. Snake, do you know scientists still don't fully understand how you're able to move and at such speed? I looked it up. You have to lean on uneven surfaces, lift up the undulations of your body to create friction with some parts and flow with others, to gather at your core and then sling out like a slingshot. It feels good. Are you guided purely by your desires, or how do you know where to go? I follow desire as one follows a thread of light or a half-remembered song you can't get out of your head. I'm always seeking the next note. So we've been doing lots of writing sessions during our residency here in Kerala. And one day we went to see the fishermen at Kovalam. We got up very early to watch them work, and that gave rise to several texts, one of which was written in collaboration with the four of us. And we'll read that afterwards, but first I'll read my own work in progress on this topic. And it's called Kovalam Song. Gazing at Yemen over the Arabian Sea, trying to widen my line of vision, moving across as well as deep into the ocean floor in a cross-section, dissecting layers of history and trade routes. Who keeps who under, while in my mouth the flavor of spices stacked onto each other in intricate cascading geometries, and millennia of herbal knowledge wrapped neatly into a banana leaf, tell me how much I am yet to understand. What do the fishermen of Kovalam and the free radicals have in common? What does the increase in demand and the dwindling sea landings share with a pair of gelatinous eyes? Faith and fear have been rebranded as terror and banned by those in power because it is too terrifying to see the suffering. Instead, they choose to decimate with all the weight of international indifference, corporate control, and the narrowing down of future beneficiaries in an unlivable planet exploited to extinction. What do I have in common with the fishermen as I watch and continue to watch at a loss, dragging my nets empty from the sea? Words as puny approximations to a wider knowledge that heaves with a swell. my ribcage unable to contain the pressure of ancestral currents. Tears stream as a stranger looks for my eyes. I cannot open them. I am ashamed of my sorrow. Meanwhile, the whales continue for now to sing their songs, going viral around the globe with their own summer of love before the end of the world. And just to finish up, I thought I'd read a poem in Spanish. I write in Spanish as well as in English. And so just to add to the multiplicity of languages spoken here, I thought I would share this with you. And it's about the mountain range where I grew up. It's called the Sierra Madre Oriental, the Oriental Mother Mountain Range. And where I grew up, we're surrounded by these mountains, and they kind of shelter you in a very maternal way. So I wrote this to the mountain. Sierra Madre Oriental. Madre patria abierta, sabes muy bien que te llevo en mis nudos, en mis plantas que pariste, mis oleadas donde quedaste congelada. Ciegamente te siento extenderte a mi lado, acogiendo con tu manto verde de barriales y chubascos, y como caníbales te íbamos cortando los pedazos. Trazo en tus garabatos la geografía de un argumento. Lo más fácil es perderse en su confuso panorama. Aquí me doliste más vidrio que beso. Aquí me henchí más carabela que niesta. Aquí destrocé una taza todavía ceniza. Aquí unos arquitectos estrangulados se tragaron sus matemáticas ventanas. Y aquí, adentrito de mi cadera, un túnel de casa de espejos se rompía en su carrera desde la esquina interior de los ojos. Sus vías de tren por encima del cráneo trazaban rayas de medias esposas de la guerra, hasta desembocar su llanto en los dedos chiquitos de los pies, como quien brota agua de las piedras y sequías de las florestas, mi flor de músculos. So we have just a few minutes left, and I wanted to invite all of us to read this poem that we wrote together. It's very unusual to write collaboratively, and even more so to write for people, writing one single text. So it's, how many hands is that? 8 hands writing together. And the title is Rupees for Ropes. Crow, rock,
dawn,
stands en la proa,
Late, hazy days,
past early risers, a
single pink cloud
awakening in grey,
busy blood-sucking mosquitoes,
drinking masala chai,
garlanded,
restaurant,
murmured in
morning,
heat seeping into skin,
choreographed crows,
scratching in the
choir,
expecting something
to
to
come.
come.
Ropes begin their disentanglement.
Yellow,
black, and cream.
an
An endless cycle.
Rhythmic broad walking, sweep hunched low over tiles,
Brushing yesterday
over
the pavement into the sun.
feeling like yesterday,
Only this morning,
walking in the dark,
guessing the shape of steps
the lives of the bikers.
or rickshaw drivers,
at dawn.
no chanting on Covalum Beach today,
No
No
fish, more plastic than meat
in
weary nets. How long will the fisherman's song be remembered?
how many mornings without fish,
When the songs are forgotten, the
the
bird song is also lost.
How to rebuild the identity of nets,
The unisonic
Unisonic.
pull
waiting for a conclusion,
by
wet rope
and hope.
White people, fluorescent hot pants,
doing laps,
taking photographs,
mindless fashion,
a parallel beach universe,
clashing with the waves,
so far
and
close to the industrial port.
As the curtain rises,
They limbo under the rope,
the same pace,
without a second glance,
like trawlers that sweep
life into their gullets,
sucking everything they suck.
Thank you very much.
First of all, I would like to express my sincere thanks to all the 4 poets who have enthralled us with your recitation. See, what you have done is actually, what we felt is you are talking to nature in the real sense, Mother Nature. You have observed very keenly about the birds' cry, even the at Wagaman, Calicut or Kovalam, what you said, and you penned it in the form of a great poem. That is really appreciable. So I have one more question. Did you pen any poem to preserve or conserve the biodiversity of nature of your own country?
Yes, I think the final poem I read was relating to maybe climate anxiety and kind of how we stop ourselves from becoming paralyzed in the face of all the threats that are there to nature, to ecology, biodiversity, and preserve that energy for taking action, because sometimes it can seem so huge what has to be done that actually, you know, that in itself stops us from taking steps. So there's that, but what's been wonderful, and you know, I'd like to thank Alexandra and Literature Across Frontiers for this opportunity, really, because I think coming here, absorbing the experience, we've been spending a lot of time watching the fishermen down in Kovalam and around in the port, and what travelling to somewhere else does is it gives you a better perspective on what's going on in your own. You write about home, you don't come here to write about India, I come here to write about Wales almost, but I get a different perspective of it. So what I've noticed is there's so many parallels between that fishing village and this small fishing village near where I live in Wales, where, you know, there used to be a booming herring industry. There's only one fishing boat left now, and it's, you know, because of this overfishing, industrial fishing, you know, that's under threat. So I think it's what the more of this kind of networking can do, and learning from each other as well. And poetry then is a wonderful way to express it and hopefully take a bit of action. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for the wonderful experience we had. And within a short span of time, we feel that you have really understood what our coastal areas suffer from, the plastic, and more of the plastic and less of the fish you have mentioned in the last poem. And we enjoyed the Welsh poetry, but I would like to know the meaning of what you have said, the poem you have said. The third poem you said, you spoke of more about your nature and other things, and the other poems, we would like to know the meaning of the poem.
Yes, of course. So the first poem is, so those 2 poems, they're not written by me, they're part of our tradition of Welsh language poetry. And the first poem was a 16th century poem, and I think it could be considered, you know, one of the very early kind of conservation poems, seeing what man was doing to nature and reacting to that. So this is about an area of woodland in South Wales that was deforested at the time to burn for charcoal. They hadn't found coal in Wales at that time, so for charcoal burning for the iron industry. And the person who is speaking, he refers to all the birds, the loss of habitat. He speaks to these birds, and the birds form a kind of jury, and it describes the owl as the hangman who will go and serve justice to these people who have cut down the trees. So it's a very strong poem. Even from that time, people were seeing what we were doing to the nature, plundering it for resources. And then at the end of the poem, there's it says, Bydofyn pwy a wnaeth hyn o araith greulon, dyn a gynt yn cadw oed dan fforest coed Glyncynon. So as if you ask who wrote this strong poem, then you can answer it was a man who used to go and walk in these woods that were once here and are no more. So it's quite poignant and powerful, and it resonates across the centuries,
Thanks a lot for that experience. It was one of a kind. Okay, this is an often repeated question, but I just want to know from you how you look at this irony of artificial intelligence writing poems on environment.
Yeah, artificial intelligence. I find this topic fascinating, and I still have a pending task in my to-do list to actually sit down and think thoroughly about the implications for our craft. I mean, the first reaction, the gut reaction, is to think, well, I don't want a machine to do my job, and as somebody said, on a meme somewhere, the robots making art and the humans doing manual labor is not the future I was imagining, right? At the same time, I think tools are there to help us use them and make work in a different way, maybe help abbreviate some of the tasks. As a translator, I've been using machine translation for many years. But we don't use it raw. We just don't press a button and let the machine translate, because that would never work. The machine is not able, so far at least, to understand the subtleties of language, and especially when it comes to poetry. And so you kind of use the machine translation just as a way to as a shorthand, to kind of skip ahead and be able to type more quickly and so on. And I've attempted actually a couple of times to use artificial intelligence like ChatGPT or something to write a poem. And so I ask it, can you write me a poem on X topic? But it always throws out the worst cliches imaginable. And so for me, it's useful to know what I should not write, because obviously the artificial intelligence is drawing from large databases, and it calculates the most repeated phrases, and it uses those, And poetry, on the other hand, is supposed to give you the unexpected, what somebody has never written before. And so far, fortunately, the machines are not able to do that.
This might seem like a no-brainer to poets, but have you ever felt something so intense and decide not to write it and let it die within you?
Yeah, many times. I think sometimes it's quite scary to write, especially with things like grief, like losing a loved one, or even climate grief, when we're thinking about our dying world, and these kinds of pain that are too huge for the mind to even begin to comprehend. And sometimes it's scary to write down our thoughts because it helps us feel more clearly. I don't know. But I think it's important to just keep trying and not be too kind of focused on the result, but actually be more immersed in the process and trusting the process as well. But definitely, I've been stuck there so many times, yeah.
Yeah, and I think I always differentiate between the kind of writing that I do as therapy almost. I do write to cope, but that's not necessarily the work I publish. So a good piece of advice I once had is write from the scar, not the wound, and it'll be, it'll be more distilled, I suppose, and you can sit with that experience for some time and decide, how it's communicated. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't write in the times of the most intense grief either, if that's what helps us cope. It's for me, as I say, it's the best way I express myself, whether that's to myself or to other people.
I just wanted to say before the end, to the first question, if you write these poems like into your own country. So I'm British, but also Chilean. So we go between Chile and the UK. And not only writing, but also writing collectively, writing with children, working with teachers, writing with scientists, writing with like people in the seaside area. So we do a project between the UK and Chile. And we do a lot of writing, but also we do a lot of action within the writing, from collecting the things that are on the floor to like be aware of what is around us and what we are, because we are part of that. So yeah, so I think we do write about it in our own countries, but hopefully for these kind of ideas, it's not about a country, because countries are just these little lines that somebody drew just about power. This is not it's not about countries, it's about all of us. No countries, it's about the world.
And really, we're also interested in addressing climate justice, which is more than about climate change. It's about money for poorer countries to also get off the carbon drug. The UK isn't doing so well at the moment at this. They've just opened up a whole new oil field in the North Sea. So I don't think we can ever preach about anything, and I would hate to preach, but solidarity with people all around the world could really change something. And if we're all together, we can fight this. We have to, because it's about the future of our lives, our planet, and the world. Thank you.